Halogenated hydrocarbons means which contains chlorine and bromine. Carbon dioxide and methane are the main greenhouse gases which is causing global warming. What is the objective of Kyoto Protocol? CDB has two supplementary agreements along with this: regulated access to genetic resources and the traditional knowledge. Hello my dear students, welcome back to session 3 on the chapter Environmental Policies and Practices. Last class we studied about different acts that is passed to save water and air from pollution and also to improve the quality of water and air around us. Also we learned some of the acts which were passed to save forest and also safeguard our wildlife, isn't it? Today we are going to learn about some of the treaties which were signed so that the ozone layer is conserved, also greenhouse gases can be reduced, chemical weapons can be reduced, and also how to safeguard our biodiversity. Okay, so the first one which we have is Montreal Protocol. Okay, Montreal Protocol is the treaty which is designed so that the ozone layer is saved, or whatever ozone hole which is formed, that can be reduced in size by banning or phasing out the ozone depleting substances. That is, all the ozone depleting substances, there are numerous ozone depleting substances which production has to be stopped if we sign this particular treaty. Okay, and this is an international treaty as well. Montreal Protocol is an international treaty which is designed to protect the ozone layer. And also, how do we protect this ozone layer? By phasing out the production of numerous substances that are responsible for the depletion of ozone. This particular treaty was agreed on 26th August 1987 and entered into force on 16th September 1989. Okay, and also as a result of this international agreement, the ozone hole in Antarctica is now slowly recovering. You can see in 1970 there is no ozone hole at all. Okay, you can see this red thing where the ozone content is really high and there is no hole which is there. Okay, slowly you can see there was a small hole and then the hole started becoming a little huger. Now you can see in 2013 this hole is slowly recovering, and if we continue in this way to stop the production of ozone depleting substances, then the ozone layer will return to 1980 level between 2050 and 2070 according to the research. Okay, next is the treaty was structured around several groups of halogenated hydrocarbons. Halogenated hydrocarbons means which contains chlorine and bromine with carbon and hydrogen combination. So these substances production is completely stopped by the countries who have signed this particular protocol. Okay, so of all the ozone depleting substances, Montreal Protocol contains either chlorine or bromine containing hydrocarbons is completely banned, and not the ones which contain fluorine, because fluorine do not harm the ozone layer is what they tell. Okay, and also some ozone depleting substances are not yet controlled by the Montreal Protocol. For example, the ones which is not there included in this Montreal Protocol is nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide can deplete the ozone layer, but this protocol has not included this particular ozone depleting substance. So this is one of the drawbacks of Montreal Protocol we can tell. Next we have the Kyoto Protocol. Now, what is this Kyoto Protocol? The Kyoto Protocol is an international treaty again which extends the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC, okay, that commits the state parties to reduce greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gas emission has to be reduced based on the scientific consensus that global warming is occurring, and it is extremely likely that the human-made or the man-made carbon dioxide emission have predominantly caused it. We know carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases. We all know what is greenhouse effect, and also greenhouse effect causes global warming. And carbon dioxide and methane are the main greenhouse gases which is causing global warming. And most of the carbon dioxide, which is causing global warming, the increase in carbon dioxide level is because of us human beings. Okay. So the Kyoto Protocol was first adopted in Tokyo, Japan on 11 December 1997 and entered into force on 16 February 2005. There are currently 192 parties. Canada withdrew recently, effective December 2012, to the protocol. So there are almost 192 parties which have signed this particular treaty. Okay. What is the objective of Kyoto Protocol? If we see, the main objective is to reduce the level of carbon dioxide such a way that this anthropogenic activity is not interfering with the climatic changes. So the carbon dioxide or the greenhouse gases has to be reduced in such a way that it will no more interfere the climatic changes. So that is the main objective. The Kyoto Protocol applies the 6 greenhouse gases enlisted. That is, we have carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, and then we have perfluorocarbons and sulfur hexafluoride. These are the main 6 gases which is listed as the greenhouse gases under this protocol, and the parties which have signed this should reduce the emission of all of these gases. Okay. Going forward, this Kyoto Protocol is based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. What is the meaning of this? Now, for example, the developed countries, in the name of their development, they have emitted so much amount of greenhouse gases which is actually responsible for the greenhouse effect as well as the global warming at present. So what they are telling is they are the ones who are able to, they are the ones who have got about this change in the climate and moving to economic development, and therefore puts the obligation on the developed countries to reduce the emission. So what Kyoto Protocol is telling that, they have to, the developed countries are the ones which have to, reduce the emission of the greenhouse gases drastically, because they are the ones who are responsible for the greenhouse effect or global warming which is present as of now. So they are asking the developed countries, the greenhouse gases emission will be reduced, the global warming also will be reduced, so that the climatic changes will not be really very high. Okay, so that is the differentiated response what they are having here. Next, we are going to Convention on Biological Diversity. Next, we have Convention on Biological Diversity, that is CDB. Okay, this was informally called as Biodiversity Convention as well. And here this was the first one. This convention was opened for signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro on 5th June 1992 and entered into force on 29th December 1993. CDB has 2 supplementary agreements along with this, that is Cartagena Protocol. This particular protocol is dealing with safe handling and transport of LMOs, that is living modified organisms, which is the product of some biotechnological developments or research work, we can tell. So it is basically safeguard, or we call it as biosafety of LMOs, is done by Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. This particular protocol is based on how the genetically, there is a fair use of genetics which is happening around us. Okay, so these are the two protocols which is supplementary, or which is along with the CDB. You need not know detail about these protocols anyways. Biological diversity, that is, how are we going to use them, how are we going to get the benefits of this biodiversity? It should be in a very fair and equitable way. Okay, so these are the three main goals of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Now, what are the main issues that is dealt by CDB? The first one is, it measures the incentives for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. How are we using the biodiversity in a very sustainable way, and are we actually conserving them, and what are the incentives which are required for this? That is the first thing what CDB does. Next is regulated access to genetic resources and the traditional knowledge. For any genetical resources we require, any information on a gene or on anything of an organism or a plant or anything is required, the access is restricted in a restricted way. It has to be controlled way. Okay, so that the genetic resource is not available just like that. Okay, it should be controlled and it should be in a very regulated way. Not only the genetic information, also the traditional knowledge, including prior informed consent of the party. For example, there is a particular organism which is there only in particular area. Okay, and they have the knowledge, complete knowledge of that particular organism or the plant. So they need the consent of the people who are responsible or who are having the knowledge of that particular organism before that knowledge can be disclosed or it can be shared with anyone. So the consent of the person who is having the knowledge is very important before that knowledge can be completely shared. Okay, so that is there. Next is sharing in a fair and equitable way. That is, any results of any research and development which is come up and the benefits which is arising from the commercial and other utilization of genetic resources, everything has to be shared in a fair and equitable way. Because of some research and development, we are going to get for example, we are going to get a plant species which can produce lot of crop in a very short time, and there are many benefits by using such particular modified plant. Okay, so that one, whatever the research and development has got us, it has to be shared. The information or the resource has to be shared in a fair and equitable way is what they are telling. And also, the party providing such resources, it can be governments or a local community that provide the traditional knowledge or the biodiversity resource utilized, should give the consent before any sharing. Okay, so from who has developed that, before they, it can be shared, the consent of who has developed that or who has that knowledge is very important. Next is access to and transfer of technology, including biotechnology, to the government or the local community that provide traditional knowledge and or the biological resource. So how are we going to access, and also the transfer of the knowledge is controlled by CDB, and also technical and scientific cooperation also is controlled by CDB. Coordination of global director of taxonomical expertise, that is global taxonomy initiative, is also taken by CDB. Then impact assessment is done. If that particular modified organism or the plant comes into picture, what is the impact which we are going to have, even that also is assessed by CDB. The education and public awareness related to that particular organism or the biodiversity is again taken up by CDB. Provision of financial resources also they will give, and also national reporting on efforts to implement treaty commitments is also taken up by CDB. So if the treaty is signed, we get a lot of benefits from this particular treaty. Okay, next is the Chemical Weapon Convention, that is CWC. Okay, is an arms controlled treaty that outlaws the production, stockpiling and the use of chemical weapons and their precursors. So if we have signed this, then we are not supposed to produce or stockpile, and use of chemical weapons is completely banned. Okay, it is administered by Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, an intergovernmental organization based in Hague in Netherlands. Okay, so this treaty entered into force on 29th April 1997. The Chemical Weapon Convention prohibits the large-scale production, use, development and the production, stockpiling and transfer of chemical weapons. So the chemical weapons, I can tell it is completely banned if we are going to sign this treaty. And of course, we have signed it. Okay. The main obligation of the member states under the convention is to effect this prohibition as well as destruction of all current chemical weapons. All destruction activities must take place under OPCW verification only. If we want to do something also, we need this OPCW verification for that. As of May 2018, 193 states have become parties to CWC and accepted its obligations as well. Israel has signed out but not ratified the agreement, while 3 other UN member states, that is Egypt, North Korea and South Sudan, have neither signed or acceded to this particular treaty. These 3 states, that is Egypt, North Korea and South Sudan, has not yet signed, and Israel has actually signed out but it is not ratified the agreement as of now. Okay. As of November 2018, 96.62% of the world's declared chemical weapons stockpile has been destroyed. Because of this treaty, 96.62% of the chemical weapons are completely destroyed. Okay. So why exactly, this treaty came into picture and the timeline of this chemical weapon convention, if you see, incidents of chemical attacks is there and action against chemical warfare is also there. Here you can see in 1899, the Hague Convention Agreement prohibits poison gas to be used in projectiles. First, the poisonous gas was banned. After that, there was World War I. Okay. After 1915 to 1918, there was World War I, and 1925, the Geneva Protocol. 16 countries commit not to use the chemical agent after the war. Okay, that is because in World War I, there was phosgene and mustard gas which was used in large scale. That is the chemical which was used, and we know what happened in World War I. Next, if you see, in 1935 and 36, it is Italo-Absian War was there, and Italy unleashed mustard gas during the invasion of Ethiopia. Okay, and also in 1939 to 45, we can see there was World War II and Nazis used poisonous gas in concentration camps and Japanese army used chemical weapons in Asia. So after 1925, after Geneva Protocol, again there are World War II and there was one more war which took place. In 1961 to 71, the Vietnam War took place. That is, US uses the napalm and the Agent Orange here. And then in 1980 and 88, Iran-Iraq war took place where Iraq uses chemical weapons killing thousands. That is after 1995, that is Om Shinrikyo doomsday cult in Japan perpetrates 2 sarin nerve gases attack. And after that, we can see that the Chemical Weapon Convention came into picture in 1997. First multilateral treaty to ban the entire category of weapons of mass destruction. Whatever weapons of mass destruction, that is chemical weapons are there, everything is controlled by Chemical Weapon Convention. In 2013, Syrian civil war took place. In that, the Syrian government and IS militant used chemical weapons according to the UN and OPCW. And in 2013, the plans made to decommission the Syria stockpile of chemical weapons also was done after the war. So this is how, after so many wars which took place with using these chemicals, finally in 1997, you can see the CWC has come into picture. Okay, so The prohibition and production of the chemical weapons is done, okay, in CWC. Then destruction or monitored conversion to other functions of the chemical weapon production facilities is given. Destruction of all the chemical weapons has to be done. Those who are going to sign this treaty. Assistance between the state parties and OPCW in the case of use of chemical weapons is done. Then in OPCW, inspection regime for the production of chemicals which might be converted into chemical weapons. The chemicals which can be used for production of chemical weapons is also completely stopped, or to do such things we require the verification of OPCW. And international cooperation in the peaceful use of chemistry in relevant areas is also controlled by this particular treaty. So I hope you have understood the main 4 international treaties which we have. Coming to exam point of view, it's a very important question for you all for the exam, and you can expect it to be there in your question paper as well. Thank you, my dear children. Stay tuned for more updates.